I have always been the adventurous type. I work professionally as a journalist. I cover small cities and their communities. My boss had reached out to me to cover the Ebony Shores, a small island with a lack of any tourism. The Ebony was so unknown, it didn't even have an official airport. You had to travel off another island on a boat to get there. When I first arrived, something felt off. It wasn't crowded or lively like any of the other islands I've traveled to. The sun was blocked by a thick fog that spread all over the island. The place almost seemed like it was deserted. Still, I had work to do. The plan was to stay there for at least a month, so I could get a feel for what it was like to really live on the island. I'd spent the day traveling and eating at different places on the Ebony. The few people I did pass by had expressions of dread across their faces. As I strolled along, I could see a homeless man on the corner of the street. He held up a sign saying, "We all work for food." I kneeled down and gave him the spare change I had, before someone had suddenly knocked over his almost empty can. I looked up and saw a grumpy old man scoffing down at me. He mumbled something about how tourists didn't belong here, then walked off until the fog had covered his silhouette completely. I apologized for his behavior while picking up the coins off the floor, and the homeless man suddenly grabbed my hand.
You need to leave now.
I was startled by his sudden threat. Were all the people in Ebony so rude towards the tourists? I got up and left him sitting there, creeped out by that whole interaction. That night, I checked into a hotel by the sea. It was so close, you could hear their ocean waves from my bedroom. I lay down and tried to forget the homeless man from before. However, I was disturbed from my sleep by a knock at my hotel door. Once I looked into the people, I realized it was a police officer. I reluctantly unlocked the door, and he asked me if I was a reporter who arrived today. I nodded. Then he began to ask a few questions about my stay in town. I interrupted him and asked what this was all about. He took a deep breath and informed me that I had been reported missing. I was put off by his accusation and assured him I was definitely not missing since I was right in front of him. However, I did tell him about the homeless man from earlier that day, and the officer diligently took notes. He said he would file a report, but there wasn't much else that he could do. As I was alone in my hotel room, I wondered who would have reported me missing. I'd only been here for a day. The following morning, I tried my best to shake off the unease I felt from my conversation last night. The locals greeted me with the same stony expressions from yesterday. However, today I noticed there was a lack of food from most of the restaurants I went to. My phone wasn't getting any connection on the island, but I needed to give my boss status updates on my stay here. So later that day, I'd made my way down to the post office to mail a letter to my boss. Once I looked at the back wall, I noticed something strange. The wall was covered with posters of different missing people. To my horror, my own face was staring right back at me, right in the center. Frantically, I dialed the police from a payphone to reiterate that I was not missing. I recognized the voice on the other line as the police officer from last night. He told me that there had been similar cases of people disappearing from Ebony without a trace. When I repeated that I was not a missing person, he went silent. Then I heard him say,
It's such a pretty picture, though.
Before I could ask him what he meant, he hung up on me. I quickly began to realize the danger of the situation I was in. I returned to my hotel, quickly packed my bags, and got ready to leave town. I had no idea what had happened or why my face was on a missing person poster, but I didn't want to stick around and find out. I waited down at the fishing docks for a boat to take me to the next island to go home. I could see a boat through the fog in the distance. A single fisherman was on it. Once he got to the docks, I asked him if he could take me to the next island over so I could get to the airport. He nodded. I boarded the boat and we left Ebony. A sigh of relief left my lips. I felt like I could finally sit down for the first time. I looked back to the island even though we were far away. I could see the outlines of people standing at the fishing dock. I couldn't help but laugh a bit. I had escaped whatever fate awaited me on that horrible island. I sat down and found myself falling asleep. Once I woke up, I looked over and saw the fisherman looking out to the distance. His cap was off now. Every bone in my body immediately recognized his face. It was a police officer from earlier. My eyes trailed over to where he was looking, and I saw the familiar outline of the Ebony. As the boat slowly got closer to the island, I realized I wasn't ever going to leave. Thank you for watching. This video was inspired by a comment I had gotten a long time ago. The person asked me to write about someone who saw themselves on a missing persons poster. I recently got a professional camera, so this summer I wanted to make a side channel for vlogs and little adventures. If you guys are interested in that, let me know. So goodbye for now, but not forever.